I came home early and heard my wife with another man. I stayed silent, planned everything, and took my revenge without saying a word. I didn't find out my wife was cheating the way people usually do. There were no obvious signs. No late-night arguments, no lipstick stains, no suspicious texts lighting up her phone while she nervously turned it away. If anything, everything felt normal. That's what made it worse. Because the night I found out, it wasn't because I was looking for the truth. It was because the truth was waiting for me, on the other side of my own bedroom door. That day started like any other. I had a long meeting scheduled, and I told my wife, Nisha, that I'd probably be home late. She just smiled, told me not to stress too much, and reminded me to eat on time. That was her thing. Always caring, always warm. At least, that's what I believed. But the meeting got cancelled last minute. No warning, no reschedule. Just like that, I was free hours earlier than expected. I remember thinking how happy she'd be if I came home early. Maybe we'd order food, watch something together, laugh like we used to. I even stopped on the way to grab her favorite dessert. It's funny how your life can split into two versions of reality, before a moment and after it. I reached home around 8:15. The lights were on. Her sandals were by the door. Everything looked exactly the same. But something felt off. I don't know why I didn't ring the bell. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was just one of those things you can't explain. I quietly unlocked the door and stepped inside. And that's when I heard it. A man's voice. At first, my brain tried to make excuses. Maybe it was a delivery guy, or a neighbor, or someone from maintenance. But then I heard her laughing. Not just any laugh, that laugh. The one she used to save for me. Soft, comfortable, intimate. And then there was a pause, followed by a tone I had never heard before. I froze. I didn't move forward. I didn't call out her name. I didn't even breathe properly. I just stood there, in my own house, holding a box of dessert, while my entire marriage quietly collapsed in the next room. The bedroom door was slightly closed. Not fully, just enough. Enough to hear, not enough to see. And somehow, that made it worse. Because your mind fills in the gaps. And trust me, it always imagines the worst version. I don't know how long I stood there. It could have been seconds. It felt like hours. But one thing I remember clearly is this. I didn't feel anger. Not immediately. What I felt was something colder. Something quieter. Something that scared even me. Because in that moment, something inside me switched off. The man who loved her, who trusted her, who would have done anything for her. He disappeared, and what replaced him was calm. I slowly stepped back, opened the door, walked out, closed it gently behind me, and just like that, I left my own life without making a sound. I sat in my car for a long time after that. No music, no phone, just silence. I thought I'd cry. I thought I'd feel rage, or heartbreak, or something dramatic like you see in movies. But I didn't, because deep down, I understood something very important in that moment. If I reacted now, I would lose everything. Emotion makes you impulsive. It makes you reckless. But silence gives you control. So I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. The next morning, I woke up early. She was still asleep, lying peacefully like nothing in the world had changed. I looked at her for a few seconds. And for the first time in years, I felt nothing. No warmth, no love, just distance. She woke up, smiled at me, and asked why I came home so late last night. And just like that, she lied. Without hesitation, without guilt, like it was the easiest thing in the world. That was the moment it truly hit me. Not when I heard her, but when she looked into my eyes and chose to lie. I smiled back, told her I got stuck at work, and played along. That's when the real process began. I contacted a lawyer that same week. Quietly, professionally, no drama, no emotional breakdowns. Just facts. I started separating finances, moved my savings into a different account, reviewed every document, every asset, every detail. I wasn't going to walk away empty-handed. And most importantly, I wasn't going to let her see it coming. At home, I was the same husband. Maybe even better. I listened more, talked more, smiled more, and she got comfortable, careless. That's when I started looking into him. It didn't take long. People who think they're being secretive usually aren't as smart as they believe. A repeated number, late-night calls, patterns. Eventually, I found him. His name was Rohan, and when I dug a little deeper, I actually laughed, because life has a strange way of balancing things. He was married. His wife's name was Kavya. And unlike me, she had no idea, at least, not yet. Reaching out to her wasn't easy. I wasn't angry anymore, but I knew what I was about to do would change everything for both of us. At first, she didn't believe me. Why would she? So I didn't argue. I didn't try to convince her with words. I showed her. Proof doesn't shout. It sits quietly, and destroys everything in its path. Messages, call logs, timelines, Piece by piece, I watched her go from confused to silent. And in that silence, I recognized something. The same thing I felt that night. The moment when your reality breaks. We didn't plan revenge like angry people. There were no shouting matches. No emotional outbursts. Just patience. Just timing. We chose a Sunday. A normal, quiet day. The kind of day where nothing is supposed to go wrong. I went home first. Everything felt the same. Nisha was relaxed, scrolling through her phone, completely unaware that her world was about to collapse. I sat down across from her, calm, composed, and then the doorbell rang. She frowned slightly, confused. I told her to open it. And when she did, everything changed. Kavya stood there, and behind her, the truth. The look on Nisha's face wasn't dramatic. It was worse. It was fear. Pure, instant, undeniable fear. Rohan's reaction wasn't any better. He couldn't even look up. No excuses. No confidence. Just silence. The same silence I had lived with since that night. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't accuse. Didn't insult. I simply took out the papers I had prepared weeks ago. And placed them on the table. Then I said the only thing that mattered. I already knew. That sentence did more damage than anything else ever could. Because it told her everything. That I had seen. That I had waited. That I had planned. And that it was already over. She cried. Of course she did. Tried to explain. Tried to justify. Tried to fix something that had already died weeks ago. But I wasn't there anymore. Not really. Because the truth is, I did love her. More than I've ever loved anyone. But love doesn't survive betrayal like that. It doesn't slowly fade. It stops. Instantly. Like a switch. The divorce was clean. Because I made sure it would be. No chaos. No unnecessary damage. Just an ending. As for Rohan, well, truth has a way of ruining more than just one life when it finally comes out. I didn't celebrate. I didn't feel victorious. Because this wasn't a win. You don't win when you lose someone you once loved. But I didn't lose myself either. And in the end, that was enough. Even after everything was exposed. Even after the papers were on the table. Even after I walked out of that house. The story didn't end there. Because endings like that don't just close neatly. They leave behind echoes. And those echoes follow you. The first night after I left, I didn't go to a friend's place. I didn't call anyone. I checked into a hotel. Alone. I remember sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall, trying to feel something, anger, relief, satisfaction, anything. But all I felt was quiet. Not peaceful quiet, empty quiet, the kind that makes you realize how much of your life was built around one person. And how strange it feels when that person is suddenly gone, even if they're the one who broke everything. My phone kept buzzing, her name, over and over again, calls, messages, voice notes. At first, I ignored it. But eventually, I opened one. Not because I wanted answers, but because I wanted to confirm something. She was crying, apologizing, saying it just happened. Saying it didn't mean anything. Saying she still loved me. And that's when I understood something very clearly. People don't regret betrayal. They regret consequences. I didn't reply. I didn't block her either. I just let it be. Because silence had already done more damage than words ever could. The next few days were about finishing what I started. Lawyers, documents, finalizing everything. She tried to delay it. Tried to meet me. Tried to talk one last time. But I refused. Not because I was angry. But because I knew exactly what would happen. She would cry. I would remember the version of her I once loved. And for a moment, I might hesitate. And I couldn't afford that. Not anymore. A week later, Kavya called me. It was the first time we spoke since that day. Her voice was different, stronger, but heavier. She told me she had confronted Rohan after leaving my place that day. Not with anger, but with the same calm I had used. She told him everything, showed him she knew, and just like Nisha, he broke. But unlike Nisha, he didn't beg. He tried to justify it. Blamed stress, blamed distance, blamed everything except himself. And that was the final confirmation she needed. She filed for divorce the next day. I didn't say much while she told me all this. Because there wasn't much to say. Two completely different relationships, destroyed by the same betrayal. Before hanging up, she said something that stayed with me. She said, "Thank you for not letting me live a lie." I didn't know how to respond to that. Because the truth is, I didn't do it for her. I did it because I couldn't live with it. Days turned into weeks, and slowly, reality started settling in. Not the dramatic kind, not the kind where everything feels like a movie, but the quiet kind, where you wake up, and remember, where small things hit you. An empty side of the bed. A habit you don't need anymore. A message you almost send, before realizing there's no one to send it to. That's when the disappointment really began. Not toward her, but toward myself. Because despite everything she did, a part of me still missed her. Not the version she became, but the version I believed she was. And that's the hardest part. Letting go of someone who never actually existed. One evening, about a month later, I finally agreed to meet her. Not because I wanted closure, but because I realized something. I didn't need answers anymore. But she did, and I wanted to see something for myself. Whether the guilt was real, or just fear of losing everything. We met at a quiet cafe. Neutral ground, no memories. She looked different, tired, smaller, not physically, but emotionally. Like someone who had been carrying something heavy for too long. She didn't smile when she saw me. She just looked relieved, and that told me everything. We sat down. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. Then she started crying, not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, and then came the words, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean for this to happen. I don't know why I did it. I never stopped loving you." I listened, without interrupting, without reacting, because I had already heard all of this, in different forms. When she finally stopped, she looked at me like she was waiting. Waiting for something, forgiveness, anger, anything, but I didn't give her any of that. I just asked one question. "When did you stop respecting me?" She froze, because that's what cheating is. Not a mistake, not an accident, it's a decision, a series of decisions, made again and again, until it becomes a betrayal. She didn't answer, because she couldn't, and she didn't need to. The silence said enough. I stood up, not angry, not emotional, just done. And before leaving, I said something I hadn't planned. I would have forgiven anything, except this. And for the first time, she looked like she truly understood what she lost. Not the house, not the stability, not the comfort, but me, completely. That was the last time I saw her. Months passed after that. Life didn't magically become better. It became different, simpler, quieter. I focused on work, on myself, on rebuilding something that wasn't dependent on anyone else. And slowly, the weight started lifting, not all at once, but piece by piece, until one day, I realized something strange. I hadn't thought about her all day, and that's when I knew. I was finally free. I didn't get revenge in the way people expect. There was no shouting, no public humiliation, no dramatic destruction, just truth, timing, and control. And in the end, that was enough, because sometimes the strongest revenge is walking away without losing yourself. Time does something strange after betrayal. At first, it moves painfully slow. Every hour feels heavy. Every day feels like something you just have to survive. But then, without you noticing, it starts moving again. Normally, quietly, and one day, you wake up and realize you're not carrying the same weight anymore. That's where I was. It had been almost 6 months since everything ended. 6 months since that night. 6 months since I stopped being a husband. My life wasn't perfect, but it was stable, predictable, peaceful. Work had picked up. I was doing better than I expected. I started going to the gym again, eating properly, even reconnecting with a few old friends I had lost touch with during the marriage. It wasn't a dramatic transformation. Just progress. The kind that doesn't look impressive from the outside, but feels like everything from within. And the most important part, I wasn't thinking about her anymore. Not constantly, not painfully, just occasionally, like a memory that had already lost its edge. Until one evening, my phone lit up again. Her name, Nisha. For a second, I just stared at it. Not shocked, not angry, just curious. Because when someone disappears from your life completely, and then suddenly comes back, it usually means one thing. Something went wrong. I let it ring. Didn't answer. A minute later, a message came through. "Can we talk? Just once, please?" I didn't reply immediately. Not because I was trying to be cold, but because I didn't feel the urgency anymore. That was new. That was progress. An hour later, I replied. "Why?" Her response came almost instantly. "I made a mistake." I stared at that message for a long time. Because those 4 words used to mean something, but now, they felt empty. Still, I agreed to meet. Not for her, for me, because I wanted to see something clearly this time, without emotions getting in the way. We met at the same cafe, same table, but it felt like a completely different world. This time, I wasn't the man looking for answers. And she wasn't the woman in control of anything. She looked worse than before. Not just tired, drained, like life had taken something out of her and never gave it back. She tried to smile when she saw me. It didn't last. We sat down, and this time, she didn't wait. I left him. I nodded. I expected that. These things rarely last when they start like that. She continued. "He wasn't who I thought he was." I almost smiled, not out of amusement, but because of how predictable it all was. She went on about how it was a mistake, how she was confused, how she realized too late what she had lost. And as she spoke, I noticed something important. She wasn't talking about me. Not really. She was talking about how her life had fallen apart. How things didn't go the way she expected. How she ended up alone. And that confirmed everything I needed to know. This wasn't love. This was regret. And regret is selfish. I let her finish. Didn't interrupt. Didn't react. Then she said the sentence she had been building up to the whole time. I want to come back. There it was. The real reason. Not closure. Not apology. Return. Like everything that happened was just a detour. Like I was a place she could revisit whenever life didn't go her way. For a moment, I just looked at her. And something strange happened. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel pain. I felt clarity. The kind that only comes after you've already let go. I leaned back and asked her something simple. If I hadn't found out, would you have stopped? She froze. Same as before. Different question. Same silence. And that silence gave me the answer. I nodded slowly. Not disappointed. Not surprised. Just certain. Then I said something I didn't even realize I had been holding on to all this time. You didn't lose me when I found out. I paused. You lost me when you chose to risk me. Her eyes filled with tears instantly. But this time, it didn't affect me, not because I didn't care, but because I finally understood the difference between caring and going back. She reached for my hand. I didn't pull away immediately, but I didn't hold it either. There was nothing left to hold. I know I don't deserve another chance, she said, but I'll do anything. That word, anything, it always sounds powerful, but it's meaningless when it comes too late. I gently moved my hand away and shook my head. This isn't about punishment, I said quietly. This is about consequence. She broke down after that, crying harder than before, but this time, it wasn't for me. It was for everything she couldn't undo. And for the first time, I truly felt something. Not love, not anger, just a kind of distant sadness. For what we could have been, for what we were, and for how easily it all ended. I stood up, same as last time, but this time, it felt lighter. No unfinished thoughts, no lingering questions, just closure. Before leaving, I said one last thing. Not to hurt her, not to prove anything, just the truth. I hope you find peace. And I meant it, because holding on to anger would have only tied me to her again. And I was finally free. I walked out of that cafe, and didn't look back. Not this time, not ever again. And as I stepped outside into the noise of the city, something inside me settled. Completely. Because the truth is, I didn't need revenge anymore. I already had the last thing that mattered. Myself. Life didn't suddenly become exciting after that. There was no dramatic turning point where everything changed overnight. Instead, things just kept moving. Steady, calm, peaceful in a way I had never really experienced before. For the first time in years, my life wasn't tied to someone else's actions, moods, or decisions. It was just mine. Mornings became simpler. Work felt clearer. Even silence felt different. Not empty like before, but comfortable. That was something I never expected to appreciate. And somewhere along the way, without realizing it, I stopped looking back completely. Until one day, life decided to remind me. It happened randomly. A mutual friend's wedding. I almost didn't go. Crowds, conversations, unnecessary questions. It wasn't really my thing anymore. But I went anyway. Not for the event. Just to prove to myself that I could. The venue was loud, bright, full of people pretending to be happier than they probably were. Music, laughter, small talk. Normal things. I kept to myself mostly. Spoke to a few familiar faces. Smiled when needed. Nothing more. And then, I saw her. Nisha, standing across the hall. For a moment, everything slowed down. Not because of emotion, but because of recognition. She saw me too, and I could tell immediately. She hadn't moved on the same way I had. There was hesitation in her body. Uncertainty in her eyes, like she didn't know if she had the right to even exist in the same space as me anymore. And maybe she didn't. She walked toward me slowly. Not confidently like before, carefully, like every step had weight. When she reached me, there was an awkward pause. No smiles, no greetings, just silence. Then she spoke. You look different. I nodded slightly. So do you. But we both knew what that meant. Not physically, something deeper. She looked like someone who had been through something and didn't come out stronger. Just more aware. We stood there for a few seconds. And then, unexpectedly, she said something honest. I didn't think you'd be okay without me. I let out a small breath. Not a laugh, not a reaction, just acknowledgement. That's the difference between us, I said calmly. I didn't think I would be either. That landed harder than anything else I could have said. Because it wasn't an attack. It was truth. And truth has a way of cutting deeper when it's simple. She looked down for a moment. Then back at me. I ruined everything, she said quietly. This time, there was no defense in her voice. No justification, just acceptance. And strangely, that was the first time I actually believed her. But belief doesn't change outcome. I nodded, not to agree, not to comfort, just to acknowledge what had already been decided months ago. Then something unexpected happened. She smiled. A small, sad smile. I'm glad you're okay, she said. And for the first time since everything ended, I believed that too. Me too, I replied. And that was it. No dramatic ending. No emotional breakdown. No last attempt to fix things. Just two people, who once meant everything to each other, now standing as strangers, at peace with the distance between them. She walked away first, and this time, I didn't watch her leave. Because I didn't need to. There was nothing left to wonder about. Nothing left to feel unfinished. Later that evening, as the wedding continued, I found myself sitting alone for a bit, just observing everything around me. People dancing, laughing, taking pictures, living in moments they thought would last forever. And I realized something. I wasn't bitter anymore. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even hurt. I was just done. And that felt like the biggest win of all. Not revenge, not closure. Freedom, real freedom. The kind where someone who once broke you no longer has any power over how you feel. Weeks after that, I heard small updates through mutual connections. Nothing surprising. Her life hadn't magically improved. Things were average, quiet, a little lonely, but not tragic. Just the natural result of choices catching up over time. And me, I didn't feel satisfaction hearing that. No happiness. No revenge-driven relief. Because by then, her story wasn't mine anymore. I had already moved on. Completely. One evening, I was walking home after work, just another normal day, when I caught my reflection in a glass window. And for a second, I stopped. Because I realized something simple. I looked lighter, not physically, but mentally, like I wasn't carrying anything unnecessary anymore. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't about winning or losing. It never was. It was about who you become, after everything falls apart. She made her choices. I made mine. And in the end, I didn't destroy her. I didn't need to. Life handled the consequences. All I did was walk away with dignity. And sometimes, that's the most powerful ending there is.